Aliya approached us to host this session, we were so chuffed, and obviously this is an amazing opportunity for us, and we absolutely loved the book. And we don't just say that about any book, yeah? So we loved it. So I think that's enough about us. So Aliya, please introduce yourself to everyone who's listening and watching today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with me and for reading the book, and thank God liking it, because I know you would have told me if you didn't like it. So I was nervous. So hello everybody, and I'm so excited because this is the first time that I'm going to be talking about my debut. You can see it everywhere. You can see I'm excited. It's called Would I Lie to You? And it's the first novel actually that I've ever written. It's being published in the UK on July 8th, so not long to go. And it's about a woman called Pfizer who has secretly spent her family's emergency savings. And then when her husband Tom suddenly loses his job, she has to put the money back before he discovers the truth. And this is this big secret that she carries by herself. She can't share it with anyone, and everything in her life, all her relationships, you know, her children, everything, her family, her marriage, everything is suddenly at risk. And then really we follow her story and see, you know, what happens to her.
Brilliant. So I guess in terms of like housekeeping, we'll start the discussion talking about your publication journey. Then we will get a lovely reading. So Aliya, as you said, you're going to give us a reading, and it's the first time you've read from the book. So hold on to your seats, people, because my heart drops when I open this book and start reading. And then at the end, and then we're going to talk about the book. Don't worry, it will be a spoiler-free discussion. And then in the last 10 minutes, we will revert to the chat to pick up some of the questions here. So as Carly's already put in the chat, please use the Q&A box, because we will be referring to those questions at the end and picking them out. And yeah, so feel free to, you know, pop your questions or your thoughts through the chat, and we will revert to the chat every now and again and at the end of the conversation. So without further ado, we will start talking about the publication journey. So Mimi, Omar, over to you. On mute.
Right, so Aliya, I just wanted you to just give us a little introduction about yourself in terms of your education background and your career, just so that we get a feel of like what were you doing before your debut at obviously 50, which is what our chat is about today.
Yeah, so I never thought about being a novelist, writing a novel in any real sense. You know, for me, it was a fantasy akin to, I don't know, being a Hollywood actress or something. It was way off the scale. I love to write, and I love to read. So, you know, I'm a bookworm. I have been. My earliest memories are of buying a book every Saturday, enduring my parents' sort of Saturday weekly shop, because at the end I would get a little book as a present. So I've always written. I wrote stories for my children. Every time somebody had a birthday or an anniversary, I would write a special kind of story for them, a poem for them. And somewhere inside me, obviously, there was a love of writing, and perhaps this fantasy that I dare not even acknowledge, because I didn't know anybody who wrote books. You know, people in my family sort of do proper sort of professions. You know, they go and become, I don't know, bankers or doctors or lawyers, very nice, dacey occupations. Yeah. And I didn't know any writers. So I studied German and Russian at university. I loved languages. I worked as a city headhunter for a while. Then I retrained for the last almost 20 years. I've been an executive MBA career coach. So I work with business schools for people looking for career change, and, you know, just people helping them through their career problems or who've lost their jobs and want to get back. So that's what I was doing. And then I don't know, you know, people come to me as a career coach at kind of key birthdays. So they suddenly have these epiphany moments. And maybe after 40, when I was sort of in my maybe late 40s, and my children were older, I started to think, you know, let me try and write something. And I started to do a little tiny little courses online, but still, it was trying, but I wasn't really getting anywhere, and I wasn't really sure if it was what I wanted to do. And then I saw Curtis Brown Creative had a novel writing course, and you had to, it was selective. You had to submit, I think, 5,000 words and a synopsis. And I, just on a whim, I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. Wrote it, sent it in, and I got a place. And I think that was the moment, because I knew that I think there were more than 200 people who applied for it, and there were 15 places. I think that was the moment that I felt maybe this is something I can do, and maybe it's something I want to do. That was the beginning. And it was a long journey after that, because, I started, but you can imagine, you're in your late 40s. I still had my children. I was working, I think, 3 jobs at one point, one in Dubai, on a campus in Dubai, one here, my private coaching, my children, looking after other family members. And at one point, I just had to stop. For 3 years, I started the book. I just had to stop because there was no space in my life. And I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. I felt maybe it's too late, maybe I'm too old, maybe it wasn't meant to be. I gave it a shot. But this idea would not leave me. And this, exciting thing that I had discovered, I missed it. I missed it so much. And during those 3 years, I kept doing little courses. I'd go to like a Guardian masterclass, or I'd do some online course, because even though I wasn't writing, I felt like I wanted to stay connected. And then I went back to it. I decided to do an MA in creative writing. And to be honest, the real motivation for that was to have a space in my life, because, when you're older, because this session is about writing when you're, later in life, midlife, when you're older, you have such a full life that you have to create a space. And in a way, the MA gave me this kind of flag for other people as well, and for myself. It gave me this commitment. I had to be accountable to produce work. And so I did the MA. I'm doing it at the moment. Actually, I paused it last year to finish the editing. And so I finished it. I think there was a key thing as well. I felt really guilty writing. And I felt really guilty taking time away for something which had so little chance of succeeding. Because the odds are really, if you sit down to think about it, the odds of getting published are really small, even getting an agent. And I felt guilty taking time away from my family, from work, because you have to not see your friends, you have to cut out things from your life. And also, there were a lot of people who thought, another housewife playing it, writing a book, people saying, oh, you started this 8 years ago or 7 years ago, and then you stopped, what happened? You've been writing for ages. And I didn't write for ages. It's true. They were sort of telling me, it wasn't in the last couple of years that I really got serious. So you had to, there's a lot of noise that you have to put aside, and from your own head as well. And and I actually had some CBT sessions. So I had some CBT sessions to stop feeling guilty about writing. And I do think, nothing changed in terms of my ability to write. Nothing changed in terms of my passion to write. And as a career coach, I really recognize the importance of, having that mental switch, that moment where you just commit to something, irrespective of the outcome, because you want to do it. So yeah, that was, sorry, long-winded, but it was a long journey, because, that's what it was.
I find that really powerful, Aliya, that you're talking about how, your talent didn't necessarily change. It wasn't that you suddenly became better at it, but you just decided, I'm just gonna go for this. I'm gonna go for this really competitive spot. I'm just gonna put pen to paper. You know, you've taken in so much, you know, do you think that was a part of it as well, that having been such a comprehensive reader, but also doing those stories for your children and doing that kind of storytelling, do you think that that was what eventually gave you the confidence that when you did come to put pen to paper to apply for something very competitive, that it was actually going to be worthwhile, it was going to be worth a shot? Is that where that confidence came from, do you think?
I had no confidence. And I think I had a passion and I had a desire to do it. I had no confidence in myself. But I do think that if you are going to try for something, you know, that's kind of just a long shot. I think you have to just try for it, whatever happens. And I think that was the thing for me. So I said, let me try it. Let me try it for this Curtis Brown course. If it doesn't happen, at least I tried. And I think that's been my thinking throughout this process. Let me try for the MA. Let me try to finish the book. Let me try to submit to my dream agent in the world. There's such small, you know, I think the agent I really wanted to work with, who is my agent now, I think she gets something like 6,000 submissions a year. And she chooses I think 5 to 10 people. So if I thought about it, you know, of course I didn't have the confidence of what happened, but I said, let me try. And I think you have to have that attitude when you start in this business, to be honest.
I was so glad that you did, because obviously paid off massively. And on that, actually, we've got a comment here. So Pamela says, life can get in the way if you allow it, but a passionate project is done for oneself, not for outside validation. Well done, Aliya. So pretty much sums it up. And Andrea says, Aliya's tenacity and dedication is so inspiring.
Thank you.
Aliya, I wanted to ask you, did you have anybody championing you behind the scenes? So sort of pushing you and urging you and trying to give you that confidence that you might not have had in yourself? Or was this something that was just completely your own?
I think, you know, if anybody, I would say it's my husband, because he just was very calm and he really believed in me, and he's always believed in me, but he also had this attitude that, you know, you're doing it for yourself, it makes you happy. So he did believe in me, he always did believe in me, but he also didn't put any expectations. And I think that's kind of what you need, and that's where I came from as well. So it's a funny balance, actually, because you have to believe that you can do it, but it's really hard, if you look at it logically, to have. I mean, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know it's really going to work out?
So in terms of that process then, Aliya, I think it'd be really helpful for people to understand, you know, how did you get that, you know, introduction to that particular agent, or how did you find their details, or, you know, what was the process? You know, did you have a first draft written before you then, or was it just a proposal? You know, if you could talk us through the process specifically for Would I Lie to You, I think that'd be really helpful for people listening.
So like I said, you know, there was a long time that I wasn't really writing this. I had the idea for ages, but I wasn't really getting down to it. And then in March, I finished the first draft. I think I started properly writing it in 2018, and I finished the first draft in March 2019. And then I started editing, and it took me until, I think, November that year. And through that time, I had been to a couple of literary festivals, I think I went to the Jericho Writers, and also there was an open day at a literary agency where you could pitch your idea and show some of your work to agents. And I was really surprised when everybody who I showed it to said, yeah, when it's ready, we'd like to read the full. So I wasn't expecting this. And this really gave me a lot of motivation as well to finish the editing. It gave me a lot of confidence that, okay, maybe there's something here. So that happened sort of midway in July 2019. So I knew that there were 2 agents waiting for me to finish this work in November. So I finished it, and I started submitting in December. And my agent, who I have now, I knew about her, Juliet Mushins of Mushins Entertainment. And I kind of followed her on Twitter just because I liked the clothes that she wore, and she was funny, and I knew she was a brilliant agent. And I loved all, her clients raved about her, and I loved her writers. So I really wanted to pitch to her, but I was too scared. I just thought, oh my gosh, okay, if I'm going to send to her and she says no, I'm just going to be, devastated. So I sent to 4 agents, and then I sent her. One day I said, I've just got to send it to her. She was the 5th one I sent it to. And she replied really quickly, the same day, within an hour, saying, can I have the full? And I was, shaking, sending her the full manuscript. So at that point, before I started sending it to the agents, I had everything edited, I had it polished, I had it ready, because all the agents got to me, back to me within a week to ask for the full. So if I hadn't had it ready, I think that would not have been good. So my advice would be, have it ready. So yeah, and then, she gave me a lot of really great feedback. I liked what she said. I liked her vision for the book. And yeah, we met and we started working together. So I did do my research in terms of, looking at who I wanted to go to. I looked at sort of huge agents, but I also looked at upcoming agents. So I kind of looked at in the bookseller, they have like rising star agents. So I looked at that. So I looked at both those ends because, that's all I knew. And I looked at their lists and I thought, I looked at their details. What were they looking for? I was really careful about researching how to submit to them, their submission criteria, making sure I wrote a personalized cover letter. I did a lot of research looking at where each agent that I was submitting to had talked about what they liked in submissions and, what they liked to see in a synopsis. So I did do a lot of research before I got to that point. And there was a lot of hard work involved, not just in editing, but then actually really reviewing. So although I sent it just to 5 agents, I did a lot of work. And I approached it like I tell my clients to approach, job search. So I say, don't do a scattergun approach, really target and find a good match and then tailor your application. So I think I used my career coaching skills a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say that must have come in handy because all the advice that you'd previously been giving your clients and trying to get them to change jobs and really reach their potential, you were able to just apply it to yourself.
True.
Just to go back, so when you approach your agents, you're just giving them a small synopsis, and then was it individual per agent, or is it generally quite the same?
So I think most of them wanted a synopsis, and I think 5,000 words or 10,000 words, I don't even remember. And then you write a cover letter, and in the cover letter you say things like, why you're writing to them. So you might reference people on their list who are similar to you, or if they've spoken somewhere, what they're looking for, you reference that. You tell them like a little pitch about your book. So your seller kind of hook, your elevator pitch. And then you talk a little bit, about, what the book is about, the themes in it perhaps, and a little bit about your background. So I don't think it has to be a long cover letter. In fact, it shouldn't be a long cover letter, but it should have the key information that might, make somebody interested in you as a writer and in your book. And if there's anything connecting you to the book. So for example, I worked in the city, and some of this book is set in the city. And I live in Wimbledon Village. I've lived here all my life, and the book is set in Wimbledon Village. So those were sort of things, I could talk about. My agent was also looking for own voices, and I wanted to reference the fact that the main protagonist, Pfizer, is a British South Asian woman, and so am I. And so, there's little bits of information that might be interesting and relevant.
The small parallels between you and Pfizer.
Yeah, if there is.
Do you still remember your little hook line that you sent them about the book?
I think it's basically what I told you, that, you spent, all your money, and how far will you go to put it back,
I think
Pfizer went to the ends of the earth, didn't she?
She really did. She really did.
Just oh, go on, Mimi.
I was going to say, I just think one thing to really pick up and celebrate on that, Aliya, is that proactive, diligent, specific approach. I think that's amazing advice to give anybody who's thinking about it, because I think the scattergun approach is obviously, it feels like it might reassure you, but actually the chance of you getting disheartened is probably quite high because you can't put a really good job into each single submission. So I think that's exceptional advice, actually, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's great. Go ahead, Linda, sorry.
Yeah, no, and on that, like, editing your own work must be so difficult. So I actually wanted to pick on that editing piece. How did you, how did you go about making sure that you edited your work in a way that you thought would be presentable to an agent, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hard when you've written everything that you're so committed.
Very, very lucky, actually. I'm very, very lucky. So the group I met on my Curtis Brown course all those years ago, we have stayed connected, and we have workshopped each other's work throughout. And even now, we had a meeting sort of 3-4 days ago on Zoom, and they really helped because, we take turns in submitting chapters, which I did. And they would give me, and are they honest? Oh my God, yes, we are honest with each other. And I'm so glad. And, it's a safe space. So we can say, and I trust them, they're all great writers. I trust their opinion. And honestly, I think that really helped. I think also workshopping with my MA classmates, they were brilliant. And then my tutors. So I've had a lot of really great support, and, I would really advise someone, because like you say, it's really hard to be alone in your head and second guessing and wondering, along with that, there is a caveat that, at the end of the day, this is your work.
Definitely.
And you do need to reach a point where you take on the feedback, but you kind of also know what you don't want to change. And you get there when you've been working like this for a while, you kind of get an intuition about how to do that.
Brilliant.
Definitely. So to try and just kind of wrap up this discussion about your publishing journey, let's talk about the final bit of it, if you don't mind, Aliya. That actual process, once you've got your agent and you've sort of edited it, it's getting closer to being a finished novel. What's the process after that? How do you then get it onto our shelves?
Okay, so when we had done all our editing, and I did quite a lot of editing, and my agent gave me a lot of feedback, I worked really hard. When it was ready, we both thought it was ready. She sends it out to a list of publishers, and then we start hearing back from them. And I was in an interesting position because I had 3 really great publishers who were interested. And so we went to an auction situation where each publisher tells you their vision, their whole team tells you their vision about your book and publishing it, and how they see it in the market and where they see it. So that was the most wonderful and the most surreal experience, because suddenly I had these amazing people who I had kind of, watched from afar and really respected, talking about the characters in my book, telling me why they liked my book and how they loved my writing. And we had all the auctions on Zoom. So we'd have, the whole team from each publishing, marketing, publicity, editorial, telling me what they would be doing. And my agent there as well, virtually holding my hand. So we did that, and in the end, they were all great, but I really loved the vision that Head of Zeus had for the novel, and so I'm with them. And then you start working with your editor. They give you, my editor's amazing. She gave me incredible feedback. I edited with her. And then you get into the really interesting bits of seeing, suddenly it becomes a book. You see a book cover. You do your proofreads. Suddenly it's this real living thing. The proofs come out. You send it to amazing writers who read your book and say nice things about it. And then it's just a whole different game, from sitting alone on your laptop, just wondering if this will ever see the light of day. It just becomes a whole different kind of adventure.
And how did you know that Head of Zeus was the right place for it? What gave you trust in their vision for it?
So my editor, Laura Palmer, the way she talked about Pfizer, she just got Pfizer. She got her completely. She understood what she was doing. She understood, what I wanted to show. And so we were just so much on the same page that right from the start, from her first emails, I knew that she got it. And that is a really interesting feeling, that somebody else can know what you felt when you were writing that. And so I think that was it. It was a lot of intuition as well. And I'm a real gut instinct person. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
So, Aliya, do you feel that there were any barriers to entry in the whole sort of publication process because of age, ethnicity, anything like that? Like, anything you want to share?
I mean, I was worried. I was a little bit worried for all those things, really. And the fact that, it's so hard to do it anyways. And
yeah,
I
exactly.
my book, as a mainstream fiction, and it's got a British South Asian protagonist, and I hadn't seen many books like that. So I wasn't sure how it would go. And for myself, being older, I think didn't really bother me so much, because I never let it bother me. It may have bothered me, but it wasn't a thing on my radar. But the interesting thing is that when I sent in my submissions, no one knew how old I was. So age, I think, is not a barrier. I've seen so many people in the debuts group that I'm part of for this year, who are 50 and over. And I don't think age is an issue. I really don't in this particular thing. And my ethnicity, personally, in this, no, I haven't come across anything, because perhaps the agents that I was targeting, perhaps we felt some kind of synergy. And like I said, that my agent in particular was looking for own voice narratives as well. So to be honest, no, I think the biggest challenge I had was that, it's such a competitive market. Would anybody even like my book? Would anybody even take it on? That was my biggest worry.
Fair enough. And I feel like age is nothing but a number, really. And, it's not important here at all. And so before we get sort of stuck into the book, you're going to do a reading. But just before we do that, can you just tell everyone who's listening why you chose the title, Would I Lie to You? And while I'm sort of addressing everybody, please feel free, guys, to use the chat. Don't be shy, ask questions, because we will come around to you and answer all those questions at the end, hopefully. So yeah, Would I Lie to You?
So I think, I never watched the program. I wasn't even aware of the program. This is really bad, but people started telling me afterwards. But for me, I think it was the play on that sentence and the meaning, because at one point, Pfizer is lying to the person who should be able to trust her completely. She's lying in a relationship where there should not be any lies. She's not doing a good thing. We know this. And, at one point, we're to make him believe what she's saying, where he questions her about something. She said, would I lie to you? And because, of course, he will say no, but she is. But the answer is yes, she is lying. And it's that duality which is there in the book, why she feels so guilty as well, to lie to the person she should never be lying to. But she is.
And
big time.
What were the other previous options?
So I had the original working title of Platform 6, which you discover when you read the book. And then we were looking at some things like, Perfect Lives, Perfect Lies. But this really made sense to me, because I felt it's Pfizer's story, and it had to be something that came from her. It's such a personal story. We follow her on her journey. We're with her at every step. And so I really wanted it to be a more personal thing.
Yeah, definitely suits. So I guess then, Aliya, I think everyone's waiting to hear a bit of you reading it. So yeah.
So I'm going to read a very tiny bit from chapter 2. So Pfizer's husband has lost his job. Tom has lost his job that same day. And he said to her, don't worry, because we have the emergency savings fund, and that should keep us going for around 6 to 8 months. There should be enough in there. And her heart just drops because she's been sort of dipping into that money, but she doesn't know how much she spent because she hates looking at things like that. She just she thinks it can't be that much. But she hasn't been able to look at the statements, which she puts in her documents folder, which is an LK Bennett shoe bag, where she just stuffs all the statements without opening them, and she's hidden it. So she's been trying to look at it to try and see, you know, how much is left. And this is the first chance she's got that same day. So I'll just start reading that. I knew that the balance would not be what he had on his spreadsheet. I also knew that I could never let him see the statements and find out that I'd been using our savings. Once we got home, I locked the bedroom door and retrieved the LK Bennett shoe bag from the back of my cupboard. I undid the knots on the nylon drawstring, my nails snagging as I struggled. Most of the money was still there. I was sure it was. I peeked inside the bag, full of statements, unopened and unread. I pulled out an envelope at random, ripping it open. Too scared to look at the statement directly, I squinted at it through screwed up eyes, holding it away from me at arm's length. I opened my eyes slowly. I needn't have worried. The balance from March, around 2 years earlier, was quite healthy. Relieved, I tipped a flurry of white envelopes onto the floor and started to open them one by one, looking for the latest statement to see how much we had in the account now. After a few attempts, I found it. My eyes darted to the balance locking onto the figure. I kept staring at it until the numbers swam and became jumbled up. I held my breath. At first, I thought it must be a mistake, that I was reading the statements incorrectly. I ran my nail across the line, following the string of numbers with my fingertip. However many times I checked it though, the figure remained the same. There was nothing left. I had spent almost £75,000. I stuffed the ripped envelopes and the roughly folded up statements back into the bag. My arms felt like lead. I was breathing too fast, but I couldn't stop. I grabbed some sellotape and wrapped it around the bag several times over, so the fabric was almost completely covered with tape, and it was impossible for anyone to look inside. I hid it back in the cupboard, then stayed on the floor, hugging my knees to my chest and rocking myself. My mind was a blank. I wanted to run and just keep on running.
Honestly.
Not a good moment.
I know, right? I would have probably just thrown myself off the I don't know what I've done. But anyway. Yeah, so we had loads of questions planned, and guys, this will be a spoiler-free discussion, so don't worry, we will try not to go into the details. Me, Mama, Pfizer, we just found her to be an incredibly nuanced character. She was frustrating. She isn't going to be, you're not going to leave the book thinking, oh, Pfizer's like my best friend in fiction. But wow, what a flawed character, and just so powerful. She had a lot to deal with, and with this whole web of lies that she had around her. Mimi, Oma, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think it's one of the things that was really, really interesting to me was just this whole concept of having the novel based on money. And I wondered, Aliya, if you would talk a little bit about that, about why that was the root, that to me was the core root of the story, was this taboo subject that, almost regardless of your background, we just don't talk a lot about money. And I thought it'd be great to just go through that and understand from you why that was such an important theme for you and why you decided to go down that avenue with this particular story.
I think part of it being a taboo subject really spoke to me as well, because, these days we will talk about anything. We will have reality TV, we will discuss anything with our friends. No topic is off bounds, but money is something everybody's so careful about. And it's really strange because it's such a key thing. It impacts so much of our lives. And yet, not only can we not talk about it to friends or just talk about it in general, in relationships, people don't talk about it. So although there was when I was researching for the book, I found that one of the biggest causes of divorce and relationship breakup is money arguments and money problems. And there was research done in America as well that couples will go through every milestone in a relationship. So being intimate, moving in together, meeting the in-laws, but never talk about money. What, you know, are they savers? Are they spenders? How do they feel about it? And, you know, it just was baffling to me in a way. And the reason I started thinking about this originally was actually through my work, because so I work with a lot of people who might have lost their jobs. I work with a lot of, you know, very high-powered people in high-powered jobs in big corporates. And once we talked about the whole mechanics of losing a job, finding a new job, in my coaching session, it's just the two of us, and it's kind of a confidential environment. And people would start talking about the emotional impact and the impact on their relationships or their self-esteem, or even small things like, oh, I was going to pay for my daughter's wedding and I don't know how I'm going to pay for that now, or how being unemployed or having money problems has caused, you know, conflict in their marriage, or even something small, you know, tiny, like maybe a child is having treatment, like in the book, that's linked to health insurance or something with their job. And so all the impacts on a personal level. And I started to think about, you know, how these decisions are made by huge corporates based on spreadsheets and profit and loss, you know, in anonymous buildings in another country in a high rise, and how it filters down to the smallest personal detail in a person's life. So that's how I kind of started thinking about it originally. And then about the couples, you know, I mean, even on personally, my personal experience, my husband and I have really opposite views on money. So, I mean, I've never spent my family savings, but I honestly could. I could spend a lot of money very easily. You know, in our relationship, you know, I'm always the spender. I'm the one saying, you know, oh my gosh, we must do this because before we too old, we must go on that holiday, we must do this. And he's always the saver. And yeah, what are we going to live on when we're, you know, if we live to 80? And so we have really opposite kind of views to this. And when I started to think about the story, you know, I thought of an incident as well, which happened to me, which is that I've been on this secret spending spree. I mean, not guilty sort of spending spree. I don't know. I've been buying some dresses or something, some dresses, as you do. And I came home kind of feeling bad, but also kind of excited about my shopping. And when I got home, my husband called to say he'd been made redundant that day, unexpectedly. So very similar. That was the sort of, you know, situation. And I felt so guilty and I felt so bad. And I started to think, well, you know, what if this happened on a bigger scale? And what if I'd done something worse? And what would somebody do? So the money thing, I feel, you know, it's such a funny, thorny subject. We're coy about it, and yet it defines so many things in our lives. People even define themselves by, you know, how much they have or they don't have. And yet we don't talk about it.
Would you ever refer back or like ask your husband in terms of when you were writing Tom's character and his reactions towards things? Would you ask for his input and, you know, see if he would not behave the same way, or if he felt like that was quite a reasonable response?
No, I think I didn't want to go there, because I think besides that kind of incident, I think I needed to just go off into my imagination, and I had to follow Tom and Pfizer, and it had to be their story. So no, I think, you know, in a way, once Tom and Pfizer were in the picture, they took over. It was their story. And although I was writing what would happen next, their behavior in each situation I put them in was led by them.
Yeah.
And I think we were all in agreement that we're so glad that you used money as that taboo subject and not sort of a cliched you know, vice that we've read over and over again. So yeah, money being sort of the root of all evil and causing this sort of turmoil obviously is an age-old tale, but not in this setting. Yeah. So it was a refreshing change and made for some really good binge worthy summer reading, which I think everyone else will appreciate as well. So I guess on to Pfizer then herself. Pfizer's our flawed heroine, but you know that because her motivations are good, you sort of feel sorry for her and you're frustrated by her at the same time. So
you're rooting for her because you want her to solve her issues, but at the same time you're just internally screaming like, what are you doing? What is this?
What lengths will you go to, Pfizer? Like, chill. Oh gosh. And I think that you wrote that so well. The point that we were literally on the edge of our seats, like flicking through, you know, when you're reading so quickly, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know, how's it you know, how's this going to end? But yeah, so can you speak to us about how you approach writing Pfizer's character?
Okay, so I always knew I wanted to write a real person. So sometimes I come across, you know, female leads who are almost saintly. And I don't really know a lot of saintly people, you know. Maybe it's my job because people are honest with me and they are ready to open up their flaws. But I'm not a saintly person. I don't know anybody is, but I'm a good person. And I really wanted to make, you know, a flawed character, somebody good, but who has weaknesses and who's done something really bad. So that was really important. And I still wanted people to root for her. And for me, you know, the really interesting point of this story was to write, you know, she wasn't a victim of other people, somebody cheating on her, she's a victim of her own mistakes, of her own actions. And she's brought this on herself. But I like the fact that she owns it and she doesn't try to blame anyone else. And so for Pfizer, I wanted to see somebody like that. And really, I wanted to see what happens when you make a terrible, awful mistake and you've done something really bad. And then what happens next? Because, you know, that happens in life. Sometimes you do make a terrible mistake that impacts the people you love, impacts you. And then I was really curious, actually. That's why I was kind of writing this book as well, that what happens next? Because life doesn't stop when something goes wrong. So how do you approach it? What happens next? And that was really a driving force for me to have this character like this and then see what she does.
So without spoiling it, did you have the ending in mind, or was it something that as you were writing and going through each sort of scenario and sort of leading it through, that it would come to you as you were writing, or did you always sort of have a clear ending in mind?
I always, the first line and the last line have not changed, and I always knew what they would be. And I did know, and I am somebody who likes to know what happens, but how it happens is the fun bit, the creative bit. But so which I didn't know. So sometimes that is the bit, you know, like you say, it would sort of develop. Yeah, I always knew, and I like to know. I like to know what's going to happen, you know, before I start. So I didn't really change. No.
I think the dynamic of it all is just, I think, really enjoyable. Just even her family relationships, like all her friendships, even though it's one of those novels that you absolutely devour and fly through, I think one of the most brilliant things about it is that none of it feels rushed. So was there kind of, you know, when you were putting together kind of the family unit and the group of friends, again, were they characters that were developing as Pfizer and Tom were interacting with them, or were they kind of ready built units that you were thinking you would implement into the story?
No, they did develop actually quite organically, because I knew about Pfizer and Tom and I knew about their journey, but the other characters did actually develop as I wrote it. Sometimes they changed as well. So yeah, and I think that's the kind of really enjoyable bit of writing as well, because I don't really know what's going to happen. And it's really exciting. And I think I love that bit. So yeah, I didn't know about the friends. I didn't know what would happen with the children. I just knew they had these 3 children. I didn't know the dynamics or what would happen. I didn't know any of that.
I think as well, oh, sorry, am I go on?
No, go on, Linda.
I was going to say, I think as well, even though we've got Pfizer and Tom, who are our main couple, Pfizer is obviously our leading woman, as flawed as she is, you know, wow, she covers a lot of ground in that novel, but also that the characters are so rich. So, you know, even the group of friends, everyone that we come across in the novel, like, I understand what their personalities are. It's not just skimmed over like, oh yeah, Pfizer's parents, Pfizer's sister. Like, I have a clear picture in my mind of what their personalities are like. And I love that, because for me, when I personally read, I want to know the details. You know, I'm a nosy Parker, so I want to know what they're all about and what's going on, you know, throughout. So I loved that it wasn't just, you know, they weren't just accessories. I love that we knew who they were and how they related to Pfizer and Tom, and, you know, how it all fit in. It was just painted so well. So thank you for that.
I think.
Sorry,
go on. Go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on the fact just about Pfizer being a brown woman, but that's not actually the point of the story, or it's not the main event in the story. It's just about her making this big mistake, money issues, like relationship issues, family, work, you know, everything that happens to a normal person or can happen to anybody really. But it was just nice the way that her background was sort of woven into the story without it being the main event, and especially some of the things that she deals with in terms of sort of the microaggressions and the racism that a lot of people probably deal with in the same sort of way. So what did you want to tell us about that?
So, I mean, Pfizer, because she is a brown woman, so her experience, you know, she is going to experience certain things that come with that identity. And I never really wanted, that wasn't the focus, because this was about primarily a woman who's spending too much money and lying about it. But at the same time, I didn't want to not reference her heritage or her, you know, who she is. And I really, really wanted to show somebody actually who straddles two cultures really comfortably. So she's bilingual. She's got her Pakistani traditions. She's very British as well. She's very English as well. So she melds it and she lives it quite happily. And I think that was an important thing for me to show as well, because that's my experience. And of course, there are issues as well, but I think, you know, I wanted to show that is also there. And also she's married, she's an interracial marriage. She's married to Tom, he's white, and her parents accept Tom. The community accepts Tom, you know, her children. I wanted to show that because I've seen that in my family, I've seen that in my friends, but I haven't seen that a lot written about. In terms of the microaggressions, I thought it was really interesting because I haven't seen a lot of that written about, because that's such a funny, it's not funny, it's such a strange experience, because you kind of don't know, did they mean anything by it? Did they not? And it's hard to pin down. And there's one person in the book in particular who sort of comes across and, you know, and makes comments like this. And this is a real thing that happens. And I wanted to show her reaction as well, because she tries to say, well, no, she was just being, you know, funny. She's just like that. She's just culturally, you know, inept. She's just unaware. But she's actually, this woman is being quite racist. But it's a different kind of level, because I think it's important to show that as well, because it happens. But it was not the main thing that happened, but it was part of her life. Just like, you know, her caring for her parents, her having that part of her culture was important, her being with Tom's parents, that part of her new family culture was important. So I really wanted to show all of that.
And that came through. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was going to say exactly the same. It came across really authentic. And I really loved her relationship with her like her parents, and her mum just sounded so cute. And I could imagine knowing an auntie who's just like that as well.
Yeah, and thank you for repping Tooting. Drop it in here, guys. Like, obviously, you know, home turf.
Of course.
Yeah. Merch Masala, Lahore Karai, all of these places, yeah. But
had to be in there.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I love that too. And that it's just the book is not about the fact that Pfizer is a brown woman. It's just not about that. It's just that she is a woman with a spending habit who is brown, and that's it. That's all we have to say about it. So yeah, I'm really, really glad, and as Oma said, that really came through loud and clear. So I guess, I don't know, do we have any other questions before we sort of look in the box?
I think we should go straight into the box, because there's some good questions in there. So I think we should probably go in if you're happy to do that.
Yeah, sure. Oma, any questions while I get this up?
Okay. I think just a last question of what advice would you give to someone who wants to break into writing, wants to be published? What's the main advice that you would give them?
I think, what really helped me was I read a lot of books. If you're by yourself, if you're not part of a group, if you can join a group, please join a group. If you can do a little course, they do online courses, do a course, because I think it's really hard, to suddenly plunge into something like writing without a community when other people don't understand what you're doing. It's really good to have that tribe, that support, other people who understand if you get a rejection, if something goes wrong or you're stuck, and you can rant about it and they totally get it. So join a group, do a course. I read lots of really good writing books. And that really makes you, I don't know if it teaches you, but it really makes you think about your work and evaluate in a certain way. And just do it when you can. I mean, I had to stop for 3-4 years in the middle. I didn't really write it till the last 2 years before I submitted it. But the motivation was there, the desire was there, and do it at your own pace, and don't listen to other people who tell you it's not possible, because everything, it's true, it's probably really hard, but no one knows. And what is the ultimate goal anyway? Maybe the ultimate goal is just to write a book, to at least try for it, to create a piece of art, to make yourself happy, and maybe if it ends up being published, that's great, but why do you have to justify it to anyone? If you want to do it, just do it.
Yeah, you're right. And that actually leads us nicely onto some of the questions. So Moyette Gibbons asks, Aliya, what have you enjoyed the most of the process following your publication deal?
Oh gosh!
Hopefully it's meeting the Canada Book Club and
absolutely the review today. Absolutely. I think it was when it went up for sale on the Waterstones website, and amazing. I saw my book and it's for sale. It's in the world and people can order it and it's a real thing. I think that was a real moment for me. So many moments actually, and seeing this, oh my God, like a real book. So many moments. It's just been, yeah. I think those 2 moments were really exciting.
And the other bit, will you be speaking at any in-person literary festivals this year, and if so, which ones?
So I am going to be at the Wimbledon Book Fest, which is super exciting, which is my local one. It's going to be in June, and the tickets are on sale on Monday. So please go to their website. And that is so special because I tell you, for years and years and years, I've been going to Wimbledon Book Fest because it's, a few minutes away from me. And I would go and sit in the audience and I'd watch the authors and I'd buy my book and I'd queue up to get it signed. And it is blowing my mind that I'm going to be the author this time. So I'm really excited. That's all I have at the moment, actually. I think, don't know how things are going to pan out for the rest of the year.
That's a nice full circle moment for you.
Yeah.
On home turf as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Great. And we've got an anonymous question here. What other authors or books has Aliya been inspired by?
So I love commercial fiction, and I love authors like Adele Parks, Jane Fallon, Marian Keyes. I also love psychological thrillers. So, like everything that you have, I will read. For this book, it was really interesting because I did Russian literature. I studied Russian at university and German. And there was a story by Gogol written, I don't know how long ago, hundreds of years ago, and it's called The Overcoat. And it's about this poor young clerk who gets obsessed with this beautiful overcoat. And he saves all his money, he doesn't eat, and he just saves it together because he feels if he has that overcoat, people will accept him and respect him, and he becomes obsessed with it. And I think that idea of kind of, you know, with Pfizer, spending the money to try and fit in, to have the right bag, to have the right coat, to have the right house, and that obsession that still, you know, is there for all of us now, you know, that pressure to fit in, and the kind of consumerist culture we're in, it's still there. So actually that really inspired me for this book, strangely enough.
Fab. And what are you reading at the moment?
So I'm reading at the moment The Girls Are All So Nice Here by my Twitter friend, Laurie Elizabeth Flynn, which has just been published. And it's about toxic female friendships, and it's a psychological thriller, and I'm loving it. I'm really into it.
Sounds right off our street.
Yeah.
Worryingly.
Yeah.
And then we've got a couple of questions here from April. Do we get to learn what she spent the money on, and how does that affect the plot?
Yeah, you will learn what she spends the money on. And I don't know if it affects the plot so much, to be honest, but you will.
Sorry to interrupt you and tell you about your own book, but I feel like it does sort of lend to the plot in the way that you were explaining with the overcoat and how he feels that it's going to help him become more accepted. And it's the same with Pfizer. She feels like that is going to, and the women that she's around and that sort of culture and that small circle. So yeah, I do think it lends to the plot.
We know her personally by now, Aliya.
This has been a really interesting thing as well, because you know, you write the book, but everybody responds to it differently, and that's been a really interesting experience. And in a way, you kind of have to let go of the book because everybody will respond to it differently, and it's been a really interesting experience to see that, and I'm really enjoying that, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine that Pfizer will divide opinion and have a lot of people think different things. So I really can't wait to see, you know, what people say when the book's out in the world. And finally, April has asked, what does your necklace or your t-shirt say?
Okay, so look at this. Can you see this?
Oh, wow.
So I bought this for myself, and I felt that I'd wear it today because we're doing the publication after 50. And I think, you know, you need this attitude. And I don't think winning means necessarily publication or a tangible thing. I think for me, you know, winning means trying and going for your dream. And, you know, I've tried so many things in my life because I wasn't sure if they would work out. Some have, some haven't. But I've always been happy that I gave it a shot. And I think this is my philosophy. And I think this is why I wore it today, because I think we have to think like that. If you're going to be a writer, you know, half of it is, yes, publication, and of course we want that, but half of it is also the pleasure of creating this amazing thing and going through this experience of creating this amazing thing.
Amazing. I think that is such a perfect point to kind of bring everything to a close on.
I agree.
Yeah.
No better advice for life generally. Thank you, Aliya.
Thank you so much to everybody who's come, because, you know, this is the first time I'm talking about the book, and it's been really enjoyable, and it's just, this is quite surreal as well, to be honest, that I'm talking about these people that I wrote about. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you
so much for asking us to do this. It's been such a privilege for us, and we absolutely love the book. Can't wait for it to be out in the world. And for those of you who are listening, we've already reviewed Would I Lie to You twice on our page, and with a couple of reviews to come, and look out for other things with regards to Would I Lie to You. So we're on Instagram and Twitter, The Candid Book Club. You'll find us if you want to read more about the book with no spoilers ahead of time. And Aliya, thank you so much, and we wish you all the success with this book. And I honestly, we can't wait until we see everybody's opinion. But so far, all the Instagrammers who've read it have loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And
you're welcome.
7th of July, everybody, that's when it's out.
8th of July.
8th of July.
8th of July.
8th of July, and you can pre-order it now. So get on that. Start the hype train. Don't be one of the late joiners.
Thank you
so much, everybody.
Brilliant.